Hello, welcome to the CarCast+Edmunds podcast. I'm Matt, the moderator, DeAndre, here with Alistair Weaver. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Matt.
End of the
Good.
week, ready
End
to
of the
go.
week.
Sun's coming
Schools
out.
schools are out. It's all happening.
Schools are out. When's the school out for summer?
That's now. That's my
That's
kid.
now.
My 6-year-old finished yesterday. My 3-year-old's in preschool, so that's good. That just keeps rolling. But now, like everybody else, we're into a diet of summer camps and entertainment and everything else. All on the assumption that nobody actually works.
Yeah. So now summer we get to lead into like the Father's Day car show. We got Monterey Car Week. There's going to be, and then somewhere around like between August and October, we just get so many events packed into some, and that's before we even get to like LA Auto Show. But it just seems like there's so many events.
That's right. I just
That
got an
are
invite to Goodwood Festival of Speed. I'm not sure I can go yet, but obviously that's in the UK. But yeah, that's always a great event.
And then there's sorry, I got something in my eye. There's kind of like a Monterey Car Week, but on the East Coast, I think it's called Bridge. I gotta look into that. I'll bring somebody on from that group onto the show at some point. But I didn't even really know about it. I don't know why, but it's amazing and it's like maybe it's a little bit more like uh what's the other event in Monterey that they started up? I can't remember the name of it. Something.
No, not
No,
Radwood.
it was
No,
at Laguna Seca, and
Quail.
then they moved it to Sonoma.
Quail. No.
They moved it to I forgot the name of the event now.
How
There's just too
posh?
many events.
Describe it. Is it the really posh one?
Yes.
Quail.
No. That's at Monterey Car Week. This is a
Oh,
separate
okay.
event.
Oh, I see. Yeah, not Rennsport. No,
No, not
that's posh.
Rensport.
That's it.
It's I can't believe I forgot the name of it now. And I think it was started by like the wine guy. Some guy who made a bunch of money in
It's another
wine.
strong intro to a show, this, Matt.
Yeah, it'll come to me at some point.
Oh,
Velocity, there it is.
Velocity. There
Velocity
you go.
Invitational.
It's like a
They
posh
moved
word.
it to Sonoma.
It's a
Now the past couple years.
so posh word for speed.
Yes. Yes, it is. Anyway, all right, here. Let me tell you guys about Bet Online. It's the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. With baseball season in full swing, we're deep into the NBA and NHL finals, and Bet Online has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. We can keep the dog days of summer rolling with the largest selection of odds on pretty much everything, with updated odds on MLB, UFC, and boxing to tennis and NFL futures. BetOnline remains the best online source for all your sports wagering info. In between the games, you can head on over to the BetOnline casino with all their top Vegas-style games, including poker and their live casino. BetOnline, the game starts here. There was something else I was going to bring up. It was another podcast worth checking out. Is our friends at the Afterburn podcast. They have a fighter pilot over there, John Rain Waters. Rain, it's his call sign. He drops raw combat stories and aviation insights pretty much every week. It's a cool podcast. You guys can subscribe to it on iTunes, Spotify, or pretty much wherever you guys are getting your podcast. But it's cool. It's worth checking
Fighter
out.
pilot. That's what I always wanted to
Yep.
be. Bad eyesight. Bad eyesight. That's otherwise I would have been a fighter pilot.
Um,
Although I remember many years ago, I did a job with Andy Green, who was the world's fastest man. He was the guy that did 766, wasn't it, in the Thrust SSC car, and they were trying to do 1,000 miles an hour, and they just ran out of money, which was a real shame. But fascinating guy, like a real
yeah.
life maverick, wing commander in the RAF, the British Air Force, world's fastest man, and you kind of have this image of that person, then he is like super extrovert and gung ho, and the reality was, he's a lovely guy, but like I think he's a maths major, basically a mathematician who got it, who became a fighter pilot, and everything was just even going out for beers in the evening was kind of done in a sort of military position, like tonight we are going out to get drunk and this is how we're going to do it. And, very far from like Tom Cruise, very far from the Maverick character.
Yeah.
But you realize like why he was so good, because utterly inflappable, like not, I mean, they got the pictures of him applying opposite lock. I mean, this is a long time ago now, Thrust SSC. It's in my childhood, but if you go on YouTube and search for it, he applied 90 degrees of opposite lock at like 500 miles an hour because because they had two jet engines and they were sort of fighting each other. They weren't quite pulling straight. And it was either, turn into the drift or back out. And he turned into the drift. And, the rest is history. And he got out of there. But it was, I mean, unbelievable bravery. But just.
Was he a driver as well? Or, I mean, like, was he. Did he have experience on a circuit and stuff, or they just we need to take a fighter pilot, we need to put him in this fast car because nobody can handle the G's and the acceleration and all that.
It was all. I know we're way off subject now, but I think this is a nice story. But the whole point about those cars is you got two types of record, and I used to do quite a bit of this in my previous life. So you've got wheel-driven records. And we did one. I worked with him on one on JCB, where JCB, the digger manufacturer, like the Caterpillar rival, they launched a new diesel engine. They wanted to do 400 miles an hour, and it was a wheel driven. So the big problem became tires. On the really fast stuff, the Mach 1 stuff, then it's all jet driven, not wheel driven. So the wheels then aren't. So you don't have tires in a conventional sense. So everything then becomes about managing jet engines. And of course, what you would then need is a fighter pilot who can understand all the science and aerodynamics and everything that goes into it. But yeah. I mean, that project, if you ever research it, unbelievable. And they had no money. They were reliant on a guy called Ron Ayres, who was a rocket scientist and an aerodynamic genius, but almost kind of like an Adrian Newey in Formula One terms. But there was an awful lot of people looking at that project saying, this is nuts, you're all going to kill yourself. And this guy just said, nope, it'll be okay. I believe in the aerodynamics and the thermodynamics, because imagine the heat at that speed. And, because you're concerned that the nose is going to tip down and you're going to, go over the top, or you're concerned that thing's going to take off. And, they went and did it with basically no money and not a huge amount of technology. And then I was involved. I some dealings with them when they came back and tried to do 1,000 miles an hour, and Rolex were involved, and I went to a thing with Rolex, and there's a Rolex watch that span off it and various other things, but they just ran out of money in the end. And I think they were struggling to get corporate sponsorship, because I think everybody got a bit eco-friendly, and it wasn't very eco-friendly to have two massive jet engines. And they actually had a Formula One engine to power the fuel pump to send the motors, to send enough fuel to the jets.
That's awesome.
Insane. And the afterburners and God knows what else. So this thing had a Formula One engine powering then two jet engines, and it was just. And I think it was a time where people were very kind of eco-sensitive, and also the concern about the risk of doing 1,000 miles an hour and it all going wrong and your brand being plastered to the side of this vehicle. So very, very difficult projects to get off the ground. But we've gone off the match. He was a good driver. I mean, I remember him having like a Jaguar XKR or something, and he did a bit of racing, but nothing. I think he did a bit of racing because it's like, let's get the world's fastest man to take part in our championship. But
I would be more than happy to slap Bravago on the side of that thing. Not condoning drinking and driving, but if they're looking for a brand to stick on the side of that thing, didn't Jaguar try to sponsor a land speed record car a few years ago, like more than a few years ago now?
Yeah,
maybe
I want to say that they did at one point, or maybe they were involved in the 1,000 miles. Maybe they were involved in the 1,000 miles an hour. I remember now, and then I
never heard anything about it again.
I think because he was going to use a Jaguar V8 when they were launching F-Type, if I got this remember, and they were going to use the V8 engine or something, and then that didn't have enough power, so they ended up using this race engine. Yeah, there was something involved. I think it was one of like Jaguar Land Rover's like famous dips at that time, and it didn't happen. That's right, they were also sponsoring at the same time like Virgin Galactic as well, and yeah, there's all sorts of interesting stuff going on.
Sometimes there's some interesting.
But I met Andy last year at Rennsport, the Porsche reunion up at Laguna Seca, and I met him and his wife, and I think he married quite later in life, and he's retired from the Air Force and had sailed around the world with her. Basically, the two of them had got a yacht of some description and had sailed around the world. It's just like, of course you did.
So he just went like as slow as possible when he went from
Yeah.
as fast as possible. When you go, hey, I'm going to retire and slow down in life, he literally did the definition of that. He went from 400 miles an hour to 11 knots.
And I thought it was a Malcolm, and he told me this. His wife told me this story that when they started dating, he he they'd been dating for some time, and then he put the video on. And I presume it probably was a VHS video. Put the video on and said, "Oh, you should watch this." And then she suddenly realized, like, he's the guy in the car, and I think that's cool. He's not sort of gone in and gone, "I'm the brain surgeon," because
Yeah. Yeah.
it's probably a good Tinder line. I'm the world's fastest man.
Yeah. Something
Not just a British accent. I'm the world's
like
fastest man.
Tony Stewart came in at one point. He came into like Adam Carolla's show and he was just like, he's like, I just went 200 something miles an hour. And, he's married to Leah now, and then who's a drag racer, and now he's drag racing. But he came in at the time, and he's like, "Oh, I've been in the dirt, I've been in NASCAR, I've been in this, been 200 something miles an hour." And Adam goes, "Doesn't your wife go 330 miles an hour?" He's like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah." He's like, "She does go a lot faster than I do." So it was something around those lines.
I think it's all what you're used to, isn't it? Like I've done 200 miles an hour, like in road cars and race car stuff. That's not the drama. Like drag racing, I've passengered a couple of times and things really fast, and that is such an alien world to me that I just found that like a little bit scary. In the same way that I know some pro race drivers in Europe who tried oval racing and it just terrified them because it's just unless you grow up in that world, I think it's quite a sensory overload if you're just
yeah.
not used to it.
All right. So last night I went over to a Ford event, and Ford debuted a truck, an F-150, more of a new trim, I guess you could say, called the F-150 Lobo. We had talked about the Ford Maverick Lobo, Ford taking the Maverick and doing kind of a fun street truck version with it, and has I want to say the Maverick has not like a drift mode, but the Lobo mode allows it to do like an autocross.
It's got torque vectoring. So yeah, the idea is that it's a proper kind of because you think about the Maverick began life because Ford decided it couldn't sell cars and SUVs, and he wasn't doing a very good job of selling cars and SUVs. And the Maverick is basically just an SUV with a bed.
Yeah.
So for the Lobo version of that is kind of like a hot hatch or a hot SUV version of, you know, an SUV with a bed. So
Yeah.
it kind of makes sense. But the F-150 is a bit different. I didn't go to the event like you did, but I've seen all the pictures and I've read all the stuff about it, and I'm a little bit disappointed that it doesn't go further. It's basically it's a trim job, isn't it? It's a bit of paint, it's a bit of lights, it's a bit of a lowering kit, couple of inches, but there's nothing. It's still the same V8. It's not. It's not a kind of. I was hoping it would be like, okay, you got the Raptor for the dirt, and now we're going to do the Lobo for the street, and it would be like a hot street truck, and it's kind of not that.
Well, like what the original Lightning was, right? Like the 90s Lightning, like my 95 had, the GT40 intake, 351. It was a little bit added power, lowered truck. And then when the Gen 2 came out, it was the supercharged engine, regular cab, street truck kind of thing. So it was kind of cool. But yes, these days you get so much into emissions testing and all the expensive things that are surrounded around tweaking an engine, aside from uh, going from like a single exhaust to a dual exhaust. Like that's about all you can do with probably without a lot of extra testing. Um, so yes, this is kind of a trim, but it's not a bad jumping off point if you want to do an interesting street truck, right? Because it's easier. I find it's easier there are more options to personalize power and performance. Big brake kits, supercharger kits. Ford Performance has a supercharger kit for the 8-cylinder F-150 makes it 700 horsepower. They have that full turnkey kit called the I think it's the FR 700, which has like wheels and
It's such a
graphics
geek.
package. What?
It's such a geek.
Yeah.
I think it's called the FR 700.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, because there was like an FR 500, I think, or something with the car side. So the FR 700. So the Lobo was like, hey, let's dress the thing up. It's gonna be based off of the Ford STX, and then this is a package like on top of that. It's only in the 5-liter V8. They lowered the rear 2 inches to level it out a little bit instead of like doing a leveling kit where you raise the front. This you raise the rear, lower the rear, which is what I did to my Ford Lightning, by the way. My 22 Lightning for SEMA this past year is I just lowered the rear a little bit to give it a lower looking stance and to just kind of even it out. It's got a ground effects package on it. Now, I'll tell you, all of the pictures that are out on this truck initially, they're not that good. It's all like so dark and it's supposed to be like dark at night in an alley, and it's a black truck they debuted, which is terrible to photograph. So you don't really get to see these things. Like maybe in some of the videos you will start to see it more, but it's got kind of a mild ground effects package kit to it that gives it more of a lower look. It has a cool new grill, if you can see here, the grill with the lights that come across it. It actually really looks good in person. It's kind of a cool looking grill. I think you're going to see more people want to do that swap. People that have new F-150s go, oh, how do I get the Lobo grill and lighting swap? So I'm sure that'll pop up in the aftermarket. It's got 22-inch wheels. It's got kind of a cowl hood with vents on it, kind of like what the Raptor has. Like I said, dual exhaust, but that's easy to do. It is a 373 gear, and they all come in all-wheel drive.
Yeah, so that's an important thing to like remember. This it's sort of it's affordable, yeah, but you've got to have the V8 and you've got to have the 4-wheel drive.
Yeah.
So I think that makes the starting point. Is it 50 or so? I think it's 60 grand, isn't it? Basically, when you so you can't.
Yeah.
It's not. It's like affordable. Yeah, it's affordable. Yeah, 60 grand starting price. So affordable, but yeah, it's still a chunk of change. But I kind of like it. I mean, I think there's a lot of people. I'd probably include myself in this group that. Much as I would like to, play around with cars more than I do, my life just doesn't. I've got little kids. My life just doesn't facilitate that.
Yeah.
I can't go and spend every evening in the garage. It just doesn't play well. So I think we're seeing this more and more, like where manufacturers are saying, actually, we're pretty much giving you an aftermarket package in a standard truck with all the warranties and all the good stuff that goes with it. I mean, we've seen it even with Toyota's new RAV4. They've got from the launch, they've got like a sport version with a black roof and slightly different, different front end and that kind of thing. So I think this is just like another way of keeping some attention on the F-150 because it's getting a bit old now. But I kind of like it. I think if you're not buying a truck for the dirt, if you're just going to kind of run around on the street, makes a lot of sense to me. I think it looks quite cool, actually. It's easy to be cynical about these things because it's just a paint job and a few bits and pieces, but it looks cool.
And they're trying to price it in a range where it has to be the high end. So look, if you wanted like the full leather interior and stuff, you're not going to get it with this. It has kind of a sport cloth interior had like a bit of a yellow pinstriping thing going on with it. Also, if you look at Ford's lineup, when you get to the 4-door, if you get one of the higher end trucks like a King Ranch or a Platinum, it's not available with a V8. But you can get a Lariat and you can get an STX crew cab with the V8. And I don't know why they didn't put it in the top trim models. Maybe
I guess they just don't figure there isn't demand. I mean, the F-150 range, I still love the hybrid. I mean, I just think it might not have the sexy noise, but like as an everyday truck that's super fast, I still think the hybrid's the way to go. But it's interesting, like the V8 thing. I think Ram have just announced. I think it's official now that they're going to bring back the Hemi.
Yeah, yeah, they are.
And I love that. I love that twin turbo inline six that we have in the car that we own. I think it's such a great engine, super torquey, super powerful. So, they've obviously looked at the market and they've looked at what customers want, and everybody just said, we want it, we still want a V8. Even if it's not, even if it's going to use more gas, even if it's going to have less power, less torque, not necessarily be as good, there is still this kind of fascination that people, with the V8. And I get it.
Yeah. I was trying to show you guys a video on the YouTube here of but it's so slow to download because I guess everyone's got the media links for it, but this is
It
this is
looks
just
quite,
all the
it,
B-roll
it looks
footage.
good.
They always send like a little bit of B-roll so you guys can edit it into stuff,
Yeah.
and I'm too lazy to do that, so I was just showing the B-roll. But it takes too long to download because they give you the high res stuff so you can edit it and then you can make your own YouTube
Yeah.
versions and stuff out of
They've
it. But
definitely gone for like a gritty urban
yeah.
cool, isn't there?
Well, last week when you were talking about the Mustang Dark Horse, and we will coming up next, we'll quickly talk about a U-Drag videos that you guys did. But you took your Dark Horse and you brought it back to the dealer. Well, you went to Galpin Autosports and you said install the Ford Performance supercharger, the Whipple supercharger, make it 810 horsepower. And the benefit of that is it's dealer installed, it's under warranty, and it doesn't I don't know, maybe it's like a 2-year, 24,000 mile, I don't know what it is, warranty. But at the Lobo event, they invited like a local Ford truck club. And it was kind of cool because they had a handful of fairly modern F-150s up front, and they were all personalized, cowl induction hoods, lowered, lifted, Raptor, not Raptor, supercharger, Whipple. And people in the room were going, oh, this F-150 is cool because, yes, if you have a little extra money in your pocket or when you want to add it later, you go back to the dealer, you flip through the Ford catalog, you grab this 700 horsepower Whipple supercharge that's under warranty, and you can make this a 700 horsepower street truck and turn it into like what the 99 to 2004 Ford Lightning was back in the day if you wanted to do that. So anyway, that's what's going on with Ford, and I still can't get their video to load. So let's take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. Okay, so speaking of Dark Horse, you guys took the Dark Horse out to the super secret track facility,
Airfield.
airfield, something or other, where you guys go for the U-Drags, and you put it up against Cadillac.
So Cadillac CT4-V Blackwing. It's really fascinating to me. We're like talking about the V8 trucks. It's fascinating to me. Like we do a series of these, and sometimes you do stuff like I remember when we did Lucid Sapphire against Porsche Taycan Turbo GT. You're like, this is going to be huge. It's got like 1,200 horsepower against 1,100 horsepower. It's going to be enormous. We're going to get 1 million views, and it like did all right. And I can't remember what the latest numbers are, 250,000, something like that. I mean, it did okay, but it didn't like catch fire in the way that we thought it would. And maybe this is like, when you do these shows, you've got to understand where your audience is. And then we put up Mustang Dark Horse against Cadillac CT4-V Blackwing, which, the Caddy's getting on a bit now. And we were like, we'll see how this goes. And he's done really, and like, everybody's like, yeah, give us a bit of this. And you read the commentary and it's like, everybody there's just such a sort of passion play for Mustangs. And the Cadillac, the CT4V, I think the Blackwing's got a bit almost like a secret cult following. I actually think it's
and
really,
the CT5, honestly,
and the CT5. I think the CT5.
I drove them both. I drove the manual transmission. It's super fun. And you're right. It feels a little dated already, but you're like, I still love it. It's great.
The CT5 is obviously the V8 and is a bit more, has that sort of slightly, it's kind of, for me, the more exciting. The CT4 is the 3.6 V6 twin turbo, but it's still got 472 horsepower. And and then the CT5 is the larger one with the V8. And you're right, like objectively, would you say this is the best place to put your money? But then you sort of drive it, and I think GM's just got really good the Magnaride suspension that they use on these cars is really good at combining good ride quality with really good body control, and they've got a lot of really talented chassis people. We talked about it with the ZR1 recently. This is another example that it's better than you expect it to be, perhaps because it feels a little bit old in the interior and things like that. But it was just a really, really close race. And I don't want to give the game away, but a lot of commentaries people are saying coming down to tires, and the Mustang was on Trofeo tires, which is super sticky, and the Blackwing wasn't. But it's a really tight race and a really, really exciting one to be involved in. And yeah,
And to be clear, this was done before you put the supercharger on the Dark Horse, right? Because they were very similar, close to horsepower range. Would you say 472 versus 500?
The 500 in the Blackwing and 472. And this is how we set it up. Normally we've tested them at the track, so we're looking at cars we're looking for close races. There's no like, oh, here's a race where very obviously wins. So, we look at it on paper, we look at the figures that we do at the track. So we knew they would line up, and so it proved it was a really exciting race. And yeah, that Caddy is a cool thing, and I think particularly if I could find one in the used market at with a decent deal on it, I think it'd be an interesting choice. It's not the obvious choice, but it's an interesting choice.
You said it was 500 in the Cadillac. It's the opposite. It's 472 in the Cadillac
and 500 in the Dark Horse.
in the Mustang Dark Horse.
Yeah. And this was always the plan. We're like, okay, we're gonna run this series again with putting the Dark Horse against rivals, and then we're gonna basically supercharge it and go back and do it. So we've got another one coming up without wishing to give the game away because I've got to review it this afternoon. Is the we could put it against the Stingray, and then the idea was, okay, well, let's go back and supercharge it and see what a difference it makes. And yeah, I mean, we know from the numbers it's a second quicker through the quarter, so it's going to be exciting.
And then turning the page a little bit on keeping the theme, I guess, of fun performance cars. Porsche 911 GTS, which is the hybrid, which is something we've been talking about for a while. Haven't really had a chance to drive yet. And just kind of on paper, you and I were looking at it going, I bet this is going to be one of the best like daily driving 911s, right? You've got that the electrification, one of the maybe there's like an electric motor that spools up one of the turbos to eliminate some of that turbo lag, and then maybe there's a second electric motor. And I don't know if that's on a transmission. I don't remember exactly the tech on this. It's been a while since I read up on it, but it kind of felt like this is good in the lineup. Like the GTS Porsches were always just like kind of what I thought was like a good buy for a Porsche if you're going to get it, because the options are so expensive, and the GTSs seem to be so nicely equipped without getting into the exotic money that I felt like the GTS hybrid could be a really cool car to drive. But now you guys drove one.
Yeah, and then I think if you look at the Porsche range, there's always the sweet spot is either the T version, which is certainly true of the 911, but the T is now manual only. So if you've got for me, the T is either the T, or if you can afford it, the GTS. Yeah. As a road car. Then if you get into GT3s, I mean, the problem with the GT3 is it's a wonderful thing to drive, and it sounds incredible, and it's so sharp and responsive and blah blah blah. But it's a challenge. It's not an everyday car. I mean, you could drive it every day, but it's a lot, right? It's pretty stiff. It's noisy. It could be a daily drive, but it probably isn't for most people. The GTS for me is like a really nice sweet spot of a car that, if you want to do that long haul road trip in, you want to go on vacation in, it's pretty easy to live with. It can play multiple hats, and in many ways, like putting the hybrid system on has just kind of perpetuated that. And we took it down the track. Sadly, I was traveling and didn't get to drive it, but the guys came away. I mean, Kurt on the test team went and drove it last year and came away pretty wowed by it. And then this has finally run the numbers. So Carrera 4 GTS 0 to 60 2.8 seconds, which is faster than what Porsche claims, and that's properly rapid. And then the quarter also, which I now can't see on my screen. Oh yeah, so that we ran the quarter in 10.7, which at 128.3, and this was without a rollout or anything like that. This is basically
so
same
fast.
tires, no tire prep, road equivalent surface, so there's no kind of fun and games here. Braking 103 feet from 60, which is super competitive. Over 1.09 G of lateral grip, so that's, I mean, a lot of that's tire dependent, but that's still impressive. I mean, it's just a mega all-round thing. And as we see so often with 911s, it's not necessarily about the horsepower figure, although 532 is quite a bit. It's just about how they deploy it. They've just got so good at managing what they have through the engine, the transmission, everything. And even like the standard Carrera is way faster than you technically need. But I know this is pretty mega, really.
Yeah.
And we know that they've officially announced it, but I think everybody knows that the next generation of turbos is going to be hybrid. So you kind of wonder what the next Turbo S is going to look like, because this is already pretty mega.
But this is a good example of what you were talking about. You look at it and you go 532 horsepower. But it's how they're using it. If you take an electric motor and you use that to spool up a turbocharger, it's not adding to the total horsepower. It's not like the ZR1 where you're going, oh, we got to, or like an E-Ray, we're adding electric motors. It's going to add 100 horsepower per motor, whatever the case may be. It's not doing that. It's just spooling up that turbo fast. I mean, there's one on the transmission
this
as well.
is a hybrid. I mean, let's be right about it. So there's different things. There's electric turbochargers, which basically is an anti-lag system. But this is a genuine hybrid. And what you're doing, and particularly I think why it's so good on the sprinting, is because you've got that sort of instantaneous torque, which just which is what you want off the line. So I think this is what I like about this kind of solution, is you're taking almost like the best bits of an electric motor, which is that instantaneous torque, and the best bits of a flat six Porsche engine, and combining the two. So
do we know if the GTS is only automatic?
Yes, because they can't make that.
The hybrid system.
The whole hybrid thing is so complicated that it just doesn't work with a stick, which is why they did the 911T as like stick only, which is kind of the purest choice. But this would be a lovely everyday car.
You were talking about GT3 and some of the other models. I wonder if this doesn't end up being the bargain version, if you will. I wonder if 911 purists will shy away from just the word hybrid, and this car might not have ridiculous markups on it like some of the others.
I don't know. I think they've been really clever in the way that they're presenting it, because they're not saying it's the 911 hybrid.
Yeah.
It's just the 911 GTS, and it's got this extra performance. So I don't think that. And I also think people are like, certainly hybrids like this, people's kind of opinions change. You still got a normal gearbox. You're not like a CVT or something. You almost like don't know it's hybrid, apart from the fact it's got this massive extra wallop.
Honestly, I bet the salespeople aren't even going to mention hybrid. They don't even want people to know. It's kind of a bad word. And
it's got an electric motor, which gives you even more performance. So.
Yeah, they just don't want to sell that. They just want to go, this is the next level of 911.
Yeah, I mean, if you read our review, like we're saying in here that part of the thing, Reese, who wrote the piece, is basically saying, the good thing about it is it doesn't feel like a hybrid. It just feels like a more of a 911. And I think the turbo will be the same. I think it would be a bit if you put a GT3 as a hybrid, but I think if the turbo goes down the hybrid route, and ultimately they've almost got to as well, because I know ZR1's got over 1,000 horsepower, but that's in the US. This is a global car. If they want to keep adding performance and usable performance, it kind of makes sense to go down the hybrid route.
Yeah. And then don't tell anyone about it.
But no
Just
stick.
call it a GTS.
Yeah.
Just call it a GTS. All right. So before we want to wrap up, we talked about Mini last week.
I was a bit rude last week about the Mini Cooper-esque Cabriolet I drove.
We were talking about the Mini going, if you're going to get a Mini, you should just get the smallest Mini and just keep the theme of Mini. If you're going to get a larger Mini, there's other options. There's maybe not quite as big as CRV or something, but HRV or whatever. There's a couple of other options out there that, have it kind of figured out. And but I don't know. You've been driving the Countryman.
Yeah, I did have the caveat last week that that I hadn't actually driven the Countryman, which is now part of our 1 year ownership fleet, and deliberately brought it home this week, and I still think it looks a bit curious. It's got this sort of slightly sort of gaping mouth thing going on, but I actually
Now
much
you're changing
prefer.
your tune from
Well,
last
I
week.
much. It's a different car, and I actually kind of thought, actually, I get this, particularly in America. It's sort of it's because it's based on the BMW X1, so it's a decent. It's kind of smaller than clearly smaller than an X3, but it's like it's a family. It's a usable family vehicle, and I like some of the detailing is quite fun inside, and like the kids got into it. Oh, Dad, this is cool. And it's got like the circular screen. It's got the round screen in the middle, and some of the graphics quite cool. And I actually thought this now makes more sense than the little cabriolet, which I just thought was disappointing. It's not like massively fun to drive, but it's all wheel drive, so that you don't get the torque steer stuff. So you don't get that front wheel pull. So I did actually come home and think, maybe it was a bit harsh because I didn't enjoy the cabriolet too much, but the Countryman's got something going for it, and it's
Yeah.
reasonable. It's a reasonable price. It is that sort of late 30s. I mean, everything is late 30s now, but it's more interesting than it's not as big as a RAV4 or a CRV or something like that, but it is kind of a slightly more interesting alternative, and the interior definitely feels like much higher quality than something like a RAV4.
It does. Okay.
So there you go. I'm not quite a
Yeah.
miracle, but I did drive it home and thought, yeah, maybe it was a bit harsh, and I should always, you always drive these things first. And I thought this is I can see the point of this more than
I mean, it stands out. Like we were saying, if you grab like an HRV or some of the other compact SUVs, this is the one that kind of stands out. So if you're looking for something a little bit more unique, I can see what you're saying on the interior. I can see that's kind of interesting. It's kind of fun.
you just got to accept that
Yeah.
you're paying a bit more for a bit less in terms of interior space. But if not that not critical, I'm 6'4" and I could easily use this as a family car. So, if you
It,
don't need tons of space, it's kind of nice. It's also quite nice,
it's got
especially
that
at
big
6.
round screen on the dash, and
Yeah,
and it doesn't have any gauges in front of you that I saw in the photos, which
it's got a head-up display. Mine has anyway.
oh, it
It's
does,
got a
yeah,
little thing.
because just the
It
lack
has
of
got a display.
gauges
Yeah,
is
it's got
just
a head-up
annoys
in
me
front of
in
it.
some cars. So I'm not on board with that yet. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't know what this little creature is. Is that a dog?
I don't know. They got a bit crazy with some of the graphic choices.
Is it a bear? Is it a dog? Like I don't.
I don't know. Maybe you
Did,
should. I don't know.
do they have?
We're
I
looking
don't
at the
know.
website trying to work out what it is.
um. Okay. Yeah, it's good. It's interesting. So you're still driving it, or you're
No, I've got it. Yeah, I've got it. We've got it for the next year, so I'm gonna do some proper miles in it, and yeah,
okay.
enjoy it for the weekend.
All right. Well, speaking of the weekend, I think it's time to start it.
Yes, got what time is it? 1:30. I got a few more emails to go, and then I'll might try and do some exercise, get healthy.
There you go. Good. Get healthy. I'm gonna go do tasting events. I'm gonna go hand out some free
I've run
booze
out. If you
from
want to plug,
Bravado.
I've run out of Bravago, Matt. So we'll have to discuss that.
Oh, yeah. Well,
There you
we'll
go. There you go. You got plug there. So that it's got to be worth a crate.
we'll send some your way. You know somebody. You're in. You're in the
I
circle.
mean, you keep using my image on Instagram every time I
I
bring
didn't
one.
post that one yet. So you sent me an image of you and a friend at the beach with
Yeah.
Bravago, and then it hasn't been sunny yet. So I was going to do like, hey,
Uh,
enjoy the beach, and enjoy some Bravago. But it's been so, we had this June gloom over here that I couldn't use the image yet. So maybe you might see it on social media tomorrow
but,
because it looks like
but
it's going to be sunny.
there we go. I'm sure I get a lot of followers.
Yeah. And then we can talk about
We've
the
run
sunglass
cars. There you go.
choices you
Okay.
have.
Splendid. All right, so have a
All
nice
right,
weekend.
guys, thanks so much for listening. And be sure to check out Edmunds.com and the YouTube channel as well. You can check out that U-Drags video of the Mustang Dark Horse versus the Cadillac. It'll be fun to check it out now because next time they go back out there, they'll have the supercharged version. So lots of cool stuff. And yeah, hit us up on social media if you got questions, you got some ideas of stuff we should talk about. You can send us an email as well. We do have an email address. The email address is, I believe it is carcastshow@gmail.com. You can do that. carcastshow@gmail.com. You can tell us what you like or don't like.
Splendid. Or just hit us up at Weaver on Cars on social as well.
Yeah, we're
As
on
you
social.
do.
You can always hit us up there too. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Until next time, keep the air in the spare and the bag in the wheel.